So good morning, selamat pagi, Assalamualaikum dan welcome to Fiza O and girlfriends pada pagi ini. Woohoo! Of course it's a great Friday. Hari ini kebetulan saya berbual dengan suami saya tadi. Hari ini adalah 30 Syawal, hari terakhir bulan Syawal, hari Jumaat hari ini, dan hari ini pula saya rasa bertuah sangat. I'm talking about an issue very close to my heart. Satu topik yang begitu dekat dengan hati saya. Dari saya rasa permulaan kerjaya saya di radio dulu, bila saya memulakan waktu tu The O Show, dan saya diberikan kesempatan oleh Encik Hassan juga Puan Zakia waktu tu untuk mengendalikan rancangan yang lebih ke arah feminist issues. Saya rasa macam wow, I'm just so thankful kan. Dan sedikit sebanyak telah pun membantu saya untuk lebih lagi mendekati ramai wanita. So hi everyone on Facebook Live and YouTube. Terima kasih. Hi Daniel. Hi Harul Nizam. Hi Rose Kopiko. Oh thank you bros for all of your messages, text. Terima kasih banyak-banyak. Terus like and share. Kawan-kawan di Facebook, I'm gonna see kawan-kawan di Facebook mana yang dah mula streaming in live sekarang ini. Sanusi, Assalamualaikum. Waalaikumsalam Sanusi dari Jurong West. Salam Jumaat Fiza. Salam Jumaat pada anda juga Sanusi. Terima kasih. Dari saya, ada antara anda yang menonton saya live adalah mereka yang telah pun ikut saya dari dulu lagi sampai sekarang. So saya bertukar-tukar platform, tukar waktu kerja, tukar platform. You're still here for me, and for that I am just so thankful. Terima kasih banyak-banyak. Siti Jumati, hello Siti Jumati. Hello Sally Zain yang di Facebook live. Terima kasih untuk semua shares anda. Please keep on sharing my live video hari ini, sebab hari ini adalah saya berbual dengan 3 wanita dari 3 I would say dari 3 what do you call yourselves girls? Groups. 3 kumpulan macam pasukan-pasukan macam okay, 3 different groups dan mereka aktif di Instagram sebenarnya. Saya akan bersama dengan Beyond the Hijab, kita akan bersama dengan NFGC, right? Dan juga kita bersama dengan Lepak Conversations. Jadi ketiga-tiga wanita ini sebenarnya mereka begitu passionate tentang apakah yang mereka rasakan. Mereka ingin bantu untuk perbaiki certain hal-hal yang mungkin boleh kita sebagai masyarakat Melayu di Singapura lebih ke depan lagi. So it's about wanita. Dan ada kata, Fiza, hari ni topik-topik panas tak? Panas. I promise you panas. So just as a bit of an intro, hari ini I nak tunjuk you antara artikel yang kita akan bincangkan sebentar nanti. So some of it, so mungkin ini adalah sesuatu yang anda telah pun let me see kalau dapat. Okay, so you cannot see my face. It's okay. Ini adalah artikel yang semalam saya terbaca sebelum saya tidur. Man 20 berusia 20 tahun yang telah pun mengaku bersalah kerana melakukan hal-hal sumbang dengan mereka yang di bawah usia di tepi tangga selepas dia mendekati anak-anak remaja ini di social media. So minors, so berarti mereka di bawah 16 tahun, right? 16 years old, right? So I don't know how old are these girls. So young. Jadi dia cari mereka di social media, berkawan, soundstage, dan lakukan hal sumbang ini tepi tangga. So dan salah seorang dari anak remaja ini mengatakan bahawa dia dah bersedia waktu tu untuk menjadi mak ataupun hamilkan anak lelaki ini. And I'm like, oh, this is sexual grooming. This is not right. So ini adalah antara the dangers of social media bagi ramai ibu ayah yang saya pasti rasa very worried untuk anak-anak remaja mereka. So hari ini topik saya adalah, hari ini adalah 30 Syawal 11 Jun. Macam biasa, you can always email to me at girlfriends.fizao@gmail.com. Untuk kawan-kawan yang telah pun subscribe, terima kasih. I have reached 11,000 subscribers bila saya bangun tidur tadi. So I'm so happy, Masya Allah. So terima kasih kepada semua yang subscribe saya di YouTube. 11,000 subscribers, terima kasih. Kawan-kawan di Facebook Live, terima kasih yang telah pun share. So lagi sekali Sulaiman Ahmad Kamil, hi Fiza, good morning. Juga Syajitan, Fiza, you're so triggered. So triggered by what? Let me know. Share with me, let me know. Kata Fika, Alhamdulillah. Oh ya, Alhamdulillah kan. Nuraini, Bunga Kembonja, Assalamualaikum Fiza, juga saya. Terima kasih One Type of Family di super chat saya di YouTube semalam. Saya terlupa untuk ucap terima kasih pada semua penyumbang-penyumbang of my super chat semalam di YouTube saya. So thank you for that. Untuk semua yang telah menyumbang pada super chat, you know who you are, yang telah pun menyumbang pada my digital journey dengan duit-duit yang dah kirimkan. So thank you very much. Muhammad Nur Azrin di Facebook Live, Ambon juga, Siti Tia, Sanusi, Nadia Elisma, Yaya Ibrahim. Nadia ni, Nadia top fan +1. I see you, you're always sharing. Setiap kali apa yang saya post dia akan share. So ketahuilah bahawa I see you every single time. Kalau awak share saya punya post, I am very grateful. Thank you very much. Kata Sanusi, Fiza, I really miss you on the radio. Thank you. Dan kata Suharti, Fiza, good morning, salam Jumaat to you too, Suharti. But I'm really enjoying so much right now on this beautiful new platform. Saya dapat bersama dengan anda mengetengahkan apakah isu-isu yang dekat dengan hati saya. Hari ini adalah isu-isu yang dekat dengan hati saya, merupakan isu-isu tentang wanita. So today we are discussing on consent, pentingnya untuk dapatkan keizinan, dan juga tentang keganasan terhadap wanita. So another article yang kita akan kongsi adalah tentang yang mungkin awak pernah baca tentang ini. Seorang guru agama telah pun dipenjarakan kerana menyentuh wanita dengan cara salah, kerana kononnya nak memperbaiki keadaan perempuan ini yang katanya mandul. Lelaki ini berusia 73 tahun kalau tak silap saya, dan tak boleh dinamakan kerana ingin melindungi identiti wanita berusia 36 tahun ini. Jadi lelaki ataupun guru agama ini telah pun dipenjarakan selama setahun 4 bulan kerana menyentuh wanita ini di sebuah bilik darjah di sebuah masjid yang beliau merupakan tempat kerjanya, ya, waktu itu. Dan sendiri itu akan kita sentuh tentang jadi ini adalah tentang consent, ya, tentang mendapatkan keizinan. Marital immunity for rape set to be repealed as part of changes to Singapore's penal code. Dan yang menariknya adalah mereka telah pun mendapatkan apakah pendapat mereka dalam masyarakat Melayu Islam kita, dan mereka bertanya pada pakar-pakar, ya, yang mengatakan bahawa that women's autonomy should be respected, and all religions including Islam do not prohibit that, but it's something that we need to engage and explain much more. Jadi ini adalah antara yang apa yang akan beyond the hijab, ya, lepas conversations, dan juga and FGC akan bercakap dengan lebih mendalam sebentar nanti. So ini adalah satu lagi kes tentang kes yang dipenjarakan, juga kes sebat, ya, untuk seorang lelaki berusia 20 tahun yang telah pun merogol mereka yang di bawah umur, dan telah pun menyerang 19 mangsa dalam cara yang memeranjatkan, dan basically it's horrible. So untuk anda, saya sarankan hari ini topik kita agak berat. Jadi kalau anda yang berusia 16 tahun ke atas, anda yang matang, anda yang seorang ibu especially, seorang ayah especially, anda yang seorang mungkin community leader, mungkin ingin dengar apakah pendapat-pendapat wanita-wanita ini yang juga banyak berinteraksi, melakukan komunikasi dengan wanita-wanita lain yang pernah ke depan, untuk menceritakan, I would say, are you going to share cases of other women? Are you guys going to share about your experiences? So kita kembali selepas ini. Hari ini Fiza O and Girlfriends, kita bercakap tentang discussion on consent and violence against women. Dan selamat datang ke Fiza O and Girlfriends.
Tengok dia, penampilan kau sepenuhnya, setiap langkah bertenaga, semua tengah-tengah melihatnya. Usah kau rasa bimbang, mereka akan membuat kau bahagia. Let's get ready now untuk terima. Fiza O and Girlfriends, 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 Girlfriends, sekarang tak macam dulu.
Okay, so it is with me and my girlfriends. Kita ada Hikmah dari NFGC, kita juga ada Fiza dari Beyond the Hijab, dan kita juga ada Noor yang off screen bagi lepak conversation. So hi girls.
Hi.
Okay, kita nak cakap hi. Okay, so you can hear like macam suara tiga perempuan kan, tiga wanita kan, but basically there's two on screen and one off screen. So hi Noor, can you say hi?
Hi.
Okay, itu suara Noor. So kalau kita tengok off screen macam tengok siapa ni tiga-tiga ni kita tengok Noor. So Noor is of course lepak conversations. Kita ada Fiza dari Beyond the Hijab, dan juga kita ada Hikmah dari NFGC. So sebelum kita cakap pasal topik hari ni, maybe you girls can say first like what started, like okay, so you guys are actually more active di Instagram kan? So mungkin Hikmah, you can start first. Like when did you start NFGC, dan apakah membuat you nak, you know, let's open a conversation. Let's open a group, community group on Instagram.
Okay, so NFGC maksud dia End Female Genital Circumcision, which is also known as Female Genital Mutilation, FGM. So ataupun dalam masyarakat Melayu kita tahu sebagai sunat perempuan lah. Jadi sebenarnya kumpulan ni dimulakan oleh seorang teman saya, beberapa teman saya lah. Then they asked me to join them as well. Yeah, and because I also believe in their cause, and I also think that sunat perempuan ni is a very important issue in the Malay community. So I thought you know, since it's a good cause, and I'm also I want to be involved and dedicated in this. So saya pun ikut team mereka lah dalam kumpulan ni.
Dan anda sekarang ni seorang penuntut. Penuntut mengambil ijazah anda tahun ketiga. Anda akan mulakan tahun keempat, tak lama lagi.
Yes, insyaAllah.
Ijazah anda dalam
pengajian Melayu Malay Studies, minoring in Sociology.
Amazing. Dan juga anda sebenarnya anda akan bercakap lebih mendalam sedikit tentang apakah pengalaman anda juga sebagai seorang pelajar di sekolah menengah.
Di sekolah madrasah. Sebab saya pun saya seorang pelajar madrasah selama 12 tahun dari darjah 1 sampai Perayu 2. Jadi selepas tu saya pergi universiti. Jadi saya ada banyak pengalaman di dalam madrasah dengan guru-guru agama dan sebagainya, dan saya rasa pengalaman-pengalaman ni sepatutnya dikongsikan lah, because there are very important lessons that we can learn.
Sebab bila kita kita berbual ketika offline kemarin, I learn so much stuff so I love talking to like macam young females, because even beza usia kita, let's say 5 tahun, 10 tahun, 15 tahun kan. So whatever you are experiencing in that era, or it's very different. So when we combine our experience, we can help each other better kan, to insyaAllah move forward dan help the oppressed females. I think for me myself, it was triggered because I feel ramai wanita yang takut nak bersuara, because they feel like, oh, am I being over the top,
too much.
Am I too much in my fields kan? That macam kalau the other community feel like macam the other women are okay with it, who am I to say it's not okay kan? Macam gitu kan. So for Fiza, you started Beyond the Hijab a couple of years ago.
So Beyond the Hijab, we started it in 2013, 2014, and we are a group of 5 people now. So Beyond the Hijab is a platform, it's an online platform for Muslim women in Singapore to share their stories, living in Singapore, reconciling their faith with their experiences living in Singapore. And we mainly function online, tapi once in a while we do have writing workshops for women to write and share their stories as well.
And it's amazing because of the followers that you've gotten, all of you. Sebab this shows that wanita-wanita need a platform, a space untuk find solidarity. They're not in this alone kan. Bagi Noor sendiri, you are actually also a group of how many of you? Two. So we're now looking at Noor. Kita semua tengah tengok Noor. So I'm going to go to the big screen. We're all looking at Noor right now off screen. So Noor started lepak conversations with one more person.
Yes.
Kan?
So we started lepak conversations in 2020, like right before the elections. So for our platform, we are a bit more broad. We wanted to tackle like Malay Muslim issues. So things like racism, the tudung issue, cultural appropriation. So not just things relating to women lah, but we felt that there was a space online in terms of like the advocacy groups, where there wasn't much being talked about relating to the Malay Muslim community specifically. So before the election, we felt that because we were first time voters also, so we felt it was important to help people make an informed decision, because especially we started with the tudung issue, a lot of people care about that in the community, and people might not be so aware about what has been going on. So we specifically started on that, and we built our platform from there.
And no, you yourself is still very much a student.
Yeah, just graduated.
Yeah, and Noor knows her stuff, by the way. I just need to let you know. Noor, you know,
I'm a law student.
You're a law student. So later on macam like, Noor ni macam tahu. Noor memang tahu because she's a law student. Legit law student. Dia bukan macam like, oh, I hope to be a lawyer one day. She's a law student. So Noor, you're taking a bar exam soon.
Yeah.
InsyaAllah. This year?
Yes, this year.
This year, all the best. You'll I don't know, when talking to you, you kind of like have everything at the back of your hand, like, yeah, I have it all here, don't worry. So
InsyaAllah.
InsyaAllah, Amin. You have us as your supporters to like, okay, Noor's gonna pass a bar exam, no problem, InsyaAllah. So I have comments, okay, kejap, kita akan look through some of the comments on YouTube. Terima kasih memberikan sumbangan. Thank you so much on my YouTube channel. Pada Zack Dia, Bunga Kemboja, Noraini macam biasa supporting my YouTube journey. Thank you very much. Dan kalau kita tengok, sorry, Syed. By the way, adik-adik, I have a big team as you see. Tadi ada pantry people, kita ada Penny. Penny, when it comes to like female guests, she's okay. When it comes to male guests, she's more like macam like, yeah, you know, you have a celebrity. So this Syed, that's my Syed, that's my technical guy. So Syed, sorry, can you show me how do I do Facebook? Swipe up. Swipe up. Tu pun tak tahu. Kau tengok. Swipe up, Fiza. So Syed, I'm not seeing the comments. Or is there no comments?
Ada banyak komen.
Ada banyak komen Sebab I see 0 comments. I'm like, okay, there's no one. Oh, swipe. Okay, sorry. Marah, Syed?
Ni atas.
Bukan main kasar kau tadi, Syed? Okay. So, Assalamualaikum to everyone. Hi Fiza, terbaik. Thank you so much. Hi Fiza, stay safe. Terima kasih Jumaati. Thank you Ahmad Zaki. Thank you Nur Sin for watching. Thank you Rosita. Waalaikumsalam. Dan okay, ada yang nak tanya soalan, please. Ini adalah platform untuk awak tanyakan anything and everything kepada kami bertiga sebenarnya. So awal tadi, I sengaja untuk kongsi this article so that you yang tengok kami live sekarang dapat tahu a sense of like what we are about to discuss hari ni. So siapa yang nak start dulu? Noor start dulu, Filza, Hikmah?
I can go first.
Okay.
So how we got together also as 3 of us, the 3 groups and 2 more other groups is because of the recent Asatiza poll, and then the 5 of us including Crit Talk dengan Penawa who are not here with us today.
Yep.
We 5 groups of us came together to create a joint statement to speak out against that particular poll, and we also want to the main point of our statement is to show that this kind of online abuse and online sexual violence towards women should be taken seriously. It's not just a joke, it's not just locker room talk, because this kind of cheap talks that happen is because it's a reflection of a society that tolerates this kind of behavior, tolerates the objectification of women and all that. And if we look at the poll, 1,005 people who participated in the poll, none of them saw an issue at all with that particular poll. So this culture, this rape culture has already been normalized in our community. So I don't know if Hikmah wants to share a bit more.
Yeah, I think adding on to that point lah. I think that whenever that something like this happens, whether the perpetrator or the victim is like from an Asatiza community or not, I think there is a tendency to view them in isolation. Kirakan macam dia seorang yang jahat,
Orang lain tak buat.
Dia seorang yang jahat, orang lain tak buat lah, as if macam like dia tiba-tiba jahat, But I think this is a very problematic way to view the entire issue, because sexual violence, the way that it can happen is that if we continue to tolerate and also perpetuate the dehumanization of women. And we see this every day lah. Kita nampak people think that women are less than men, or people think that women are not as equal as men. And this dehumanization is what allows the degradation of women sampai sexual assault, sexual harassment,
It
sexual.
starts from something very small.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
kalau boleh saya kongsi, so bagaimana kita mula berbual adalah kemarin bila mulanya polling lucah tu, that Asati poll that got us together kan, macam berbual tentang hal ini kan. And then the beauty of it is that ada antara kita yang ada yang berhijab, ada yang tak berhijab, but we felt very strongly about this, and it cannot happen to any women.
Yeah.
You know, no matter how you are, tak boleh berlaku. Dan you are right, Filza. For it to happen for the polling to have included like 1,500 men, and tak ada seorang pun yang rasa in that 1,005 felt it was wrong, that felt very wrong. So the moment the polling came out, the first thing I told my husband was locker room talk. Brought online.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, just locker room talk.
Yeah.
Macam, but it's online.
Yeah.
Kan? Because it's been normalized to be, it's okay untuk kita cakap, because it's like, we're just joking.
Yeah.
We're just joking. I'm not sure whether you girls nampak this viral video of this women gamer that goes online. And I felt it was beautiful the way she said it. She's a female gamer, and not many of them out there yang merupakan female gamer. Ramai adalah gamer lelaki kan. So bila female gamer, anda akan ada ramai men participating in your game, and she's quite famous. So ada this man yang masuk dan cakap, okay, kita berbual masalah entering this room, that room, macam tengah main game kan. And then this lelaki masuk je cakap, jadi hari ni pakai baju dalam warna apa? And then she stopped and she turned. She said, how do you expect me to react to this? And then bila aku sekarang ni akan menjawab balik kat kau, aku marah-marah kat kau akan cakap, alah tak boleh joke pe, main-main je pe. But the problem is, you've not gotten to the joke yet. You're just being rude.
Yeah.
So you guys are thinking it's a joke. No, a joke is a joke.
Yeah.
Jokes, don't ruin the idea of jokes. You've not gotten to the part of the joke yet. You were just being rude. Kan? So ramai yang katakan, ramai yang bersembunyi di belakang, we were just joking. Dan bab itulah saya rasa ramai yang akan macam, mungkin pada mulanya akan cakap, Fiza, you're just being like, being angry, but it's just a joke kan. So ramai, I'm very thankful to all the girls yang sedang texting us on YouTube. Terima kasih banyak-banyak. So we have some women coming in and saying that, Fiza, thank you Fiza for speaking about this. Mana ni kiriman-kiriman dari wanita. Kata Putri Malam pun nama, love this topic. Terima kasih. Diana Rahim katanya, thank you Fiza for talking about this. Thank you Diana. Amelia J, saya rasa ramai wanita-wanita yang berumur especially tak tahu hak-hak mereka. So that's a funny thing. Like macam kita sepatutnya tahu, semakin kita mendekat usia kita tahu, but then it's not their fault. Sebab pendidik juga adalah penting untuk menerapkan certain ideas of what's right and what's wrong. So mungkin antara perkara yang kita pernah kongsi, the wait, how many of us at time? 10 and about kan, yang cakap bahawa sebenarnya pendidikan dari permulaan itulah yang perlu kita mulakan. So Hikmah, you're making a lot of good points. Tadi kita dah cakap pasal Hikmah. Hikmah said something, and then to add on to that, maybe Noor, do you have anything to add on to that?
So I think like the thing you mentioned about jokes, that's something that's very common. Like people like to hide behind that, and that's also a form of victim blaming, where you deflect the blame and you say that, it's your fault for not being able to take a joke. And I think for women who often have to face this, like one of the techniques I've seen people talk about, like how you can overcome this, when someone says something offensive and tell you, I'm just joking, you should ask them, can you explain the joke to me? Where is the joke? And oftentimes then they won't be able to say anything, because they realize that actually sexual harassment or sexualizing a woman isn't all that funny, and it will make them think twice lah. So the next time someone tells you that maybe you're being a bit too emotional, it's supposed to be just a joke, you should definitely question them, like, where's the joke?
So what's the joke? Kan macam kita kena macam casually like I was just joking, okay. Yeah, sure, I love jokes. So which part is a joke? Kan? Like, so you like suralamnya jokes? Like, you serious bro? Like, do you ask it to another man? Bro, hari ni pakai baju warna apa? Like, you don't. You know that's rude. You know. So she made a very good point. You know deep inside you that is a horrible part of you. And when I confront you, you get angry because you have to berdepan with that horrible side of yourself. And that's why you get angry. So kita dah cakap tentang joke sekarang ni, that this probably ada yang katakan ada yang tak suka this thing, maybe because it's a very uncomfortable thing to discuss kan. Even in the female punya community. So that was very interesting bila tadi ada komen dari Emilia J. Serasa ramai wanita yang berumur especially tak tahu hak-hak mereka. What do you have to say about that? Oh, Shazitan. It starts really young, how kids treat each other in preschool. As a mother, I reinforce the need for my 4-year-old to respect his classmates and those around him. So, okay, yang ni kaum wanita juga mempunyai hak untuk menghukum mana-mana individu yang bersalah kerana perbuatan keganasan rumah tangga. Okay, so kata Kimi, yes, betul Huzaifah tadi. Just like my mom, kata Kimi, she probably doesn't know, like macam, am I being too much as a woman to feel a certain kind of way?
Yeah.
Right? Maybe you can share with us, like in your age group, because you're early 20s. Or you semua kan? Oh, Fiza, you look.
No.
Fiza's like Fiza. Don't Fiza. No. So I see Fiza dah ada some points taken down. Do you have anything else to share with us?
The point about maybe older women not knowing their rights, but I do feel that perhaps they may not know their rights, or not really they may not know their rights, but they may not have the language to articulate it. Pasal sekarang we all know this word misogyny, patriarchy, human rights,
betul,
and all that. Pasal I mean we have just been through the education and we are more educated and more knowledgeable on these kind of things. But I feel like perhaps the older women, they may not have the words to explain it, but I know they feel uncomfortable. They know that something is unfair, something is unjust to them. So
betul. Dia tak boleh terangkan They cannot describe it. It's uncomfortable. Tapi apakah, what is this feeling?
Yep. That's why I think your platform definitely is very important, because you share a lot of stories from women, and I know previously we don't have this kind of platforms where women can share their stories and say, okay, I have also experienced this form of violence or this form of sexual harassment or abuse. People don't know. Everyone is just suffering in silence. So I think it's really important with your platform and everyone else's platform where we do share these stories and people know that they are not experiencing this alone, that this is not their own personal issue or their own personal fault. It's a systemic issue, and it's a community issue that we have to solve it together. It's not just someone, it's pasal my own fault or something like that. It's a bigger issue than just an individual.
Talking about your own fault, kita perempuan have this very big thing about self-blaming, victim blaming. Then especially when I had this topic started, it was 2 weeks ago that polling was 2 weeks ago 2 weeks ago. So I did on Friday. My take on Friday bila I mulakan that show, mulakan Girlfriends hari tu adalah sebab I wanted to say about locker room talk. Then as I was talking to the victims, I berbual, I dapat banyak stories dari wanita-wanita yang berbeza-beza kan. Juga I was talking to some others lah. I realised not only locker room talk punya issue was very important to talk about, tapi victim blaming, because ada lelaki-lelaki yang keluar yang bercakap di social media mengatakan bahawa yes, it's wrong, but bila dia cakap berarti you're saying that okay, apakah lagi yang mangsa tersebut boleh lakukan untuk menghalang dari ini berlaku? We're going to be talking about victim blaming in a very short while, so stay on. Hari ni apakah cerita-cerita? We'll be back after this.
Fiza O and Girlfriends, gaya cara baru.
Fiza O and Girlfriends, berehat seketika dan akan kembali sebentar nanti.
Fiza O and Girlfriends, Fiza O and Girlfriends, gaya cara baru to the top, no less. Alam baru, channel baru, Fiza O and Girlfriends. Cara baru to the top, no less. Alam baru, channel baru, Fiza O and Girlfriends.
Untuk memberi pendapat pandangan anda, kirimkan voice note ataupun WhatsApp anda ke +65 8389 0280 +65 8389 0280.
Okay. So victim blaming, yang tadi kita nak cakap tentang victim blaming. So what's your take, Noor?
Okay, so I have quite a few points on victim blaming. I think it's important for us to understand why people victim blame, so that, because sometimes people do it unconsciously. So if we understand why people do it, maybe it will be easier for us to catch ourselves before we blame the victim. So there are a couple of reasons why people do it. So firstly, I think it's in the culture, it's in the community. I think tadi Fiza mentioned rape culture. So rape culture or rape myths. So there's this thing called mitos rogol. So it is the kepercayaan.
Apakah mungkin bagi mereka yang kurang mengerti tentang istilah rape culture, mungkin dapat Nur terangkan?
Ya, so mitos rogol ni adalah kepercayaan yang salah tentang rogol kerana ia menafikan, memperkecilkan ataupun memberikan alasan atas gangguan seksual yang berlaku. Jadi sebagai contoh, mungkin kita menyalahkan mangsa, kita kata oh sepatutnya dia menjerit atau dia tentang penyerang dia tu dengan lebih kuat, atau kita meragui tuduhan atau cerita yang diberitahu oleh mangsa. Kita katakan oh mungkin dia hanya menyesal apabila dia ada hubungan seks dengan seorang lelaki, sebab tu dia kata dia dirogol. Dan banyak orang juga memberi alasan untuk kelakuan yang si pesalah itu. Mereka kata oh mungkin lelaki tu salah faham, mungkin dia terlalu mabuk untuk sedar apa yang dia lakukan. Dan banyak orang juga menegaskan bahawa gangguan seksual ni berlaku terhadap wanita tertentu saja, like sejenis wanita saja. Dan banyak pakar psikologi yang sedar dan katakan bahawa this whole rape culture, rape myths also come up sebab kita ingin mempercayai bahawa perkara buruk tu hanya berlaku kepada orang yang buruk. Perkara buruk tidak boleh berlaku kepada orang yang baik. And that's like a defense mechanism to comfort ourselves lah, to say that oh if we are good, these bad things won't happen to us.
Kalau kita yang we protect ourselves, kan? Then we're not asking for it. Okay.
So it's like macam we feel as though we still have a bit of control over whether bad things happen to us or not, which unfortunately is not true lah, because we know that banyak wanita yang memang mangsa ni semua tidak bersalah, tapi mereka tetap diserang oleh perogol dan lelaki ni semua. And another thing that contributes to it, like you said, this is not like an isolated incident, like these are all learned behaviours. And one thing that teaches us these things is the media. Banyak kajian telah buktikan bahawa media tu banyak membentuk cara pemikiran kita, cara bagaimana kita lihat wanita, dan whether or not we are accepting of violence towards women. So if you look at past movies, dramas, even advertisements, banyak yang perpetuate this idea of like rape is romanticized, where in the end nanti si mangsa tu will get a happy ending and end up with the person who attacked her.
Terjatuh hati dengan orang yang merogol ataupun melakukan penganasan.
And banyak filem juga macam memaparkan oh seorang wanita Muslim yang baik, isteri yang baik adalah wanita yang jaga aib suami dia, wanita yang berdiam diri saja, dan mereka suffer in silence, and in the end you will get a happy ending.
Okay, I'm going to pause you for a while over there. Saya rasa this is a very interesting topic for us to actually talk about one day. A topic about aib aja. Right? It's just aib alone is something that I think could be a topic by itself. And I promise I'm going to let's talk about it after the show ends, because it's a heavy topic, because banyak wanita yang takut untuk dapatkan bantuan because of the idea that I buka aib. And therefore I cannot ask for help. So she continues in silence of suffering, and not only dia yang suffer atau dia menderita, tapi anak-anak sekali terikut sama. Or if it happens to a single young woman, takut aib, dia takut apa tak, aib keluarga, aib dia, so she's carrying a heavy burden yang tak sepatutnya dia seorang saja, because it's not her fault. Dia mangsa tau. So now she have to carry another big burden, iaitu aib orang pula sekarang ni kan. So this is I think a big topic yang kita, I'm sure Nur, for as a law student you also have your take on this aib thing. So let's rain check on that. So teruskan.
So bila kita cakap pasal media, the thing is even though there are multiple processes in place to ensure certain content like this don't come out, I think it's also macam our own responsibility as the audience. When we see these things, we need to call it out, we need to explain why these things are problematic lah, rather than support these movies and things like that. So there are a lot of macam indicators to ensure that our media is gender sensitive, and this is something I think moving forward that as a community we have like a collective responsibility to improve on. So like one last point, I think on victim blaming, a lot of it also happens sebab banyak lelaki yang bersalah tidak dipertanggungjawabkan. And especially if we look at it in terms of macam legal consequences, if we see that this man walaupun dia dituduh merogol atau mengganggu seseorang secara seksual, if he does not if he was not convicted guilty in court, banyak orang akan fikir like, then he is definitely innocent, that the mangsa probably reka cerita. And even though our court, like, they try to be fair, our judges are fair, what people don't understand is that the way the system is built is that the burden of proof atau responsibility untuk kita buktikan benda tu terjadi is on the victim. And in Singapore, if we don't have evidence, if it's only macam a he said, she said, kirakan cuma ada apa yang mangsa ceritakan, apa yang si pesalah tu ceritakan, there's no ada bukti, then the standard that the mangsa have to prove is unusually convincing. So it's not just sangat luar biasa or sangat meyakinkan. It has to be like luar biasa meyakinkan before the court can convict the person. So in some cases, I think we have to acknowledge that even if the person is not found guilty in court, it does not mean that the person did not commit these acts. It's important for us to acknowledge that, because I think a lot of the victim blaming comes from that also, and people don't fully realise that lah. And I think unfortunately, I think Singapore is trying to improve on it, but unfortunately, even the legal system itself, it does re-traumatize the victim. There are elements of victim blaming when you go through the process, because there are victims yang pernah cerita that when they go to the police, perhaps some of the questions the police ask, there are elements of victim blaming. And then even when you're in court, lawyers, defense lawyers, in order to defend the client, they will start to blame the victim. They will bring up the victim punya past sexual history and things like that. So
You mean really?
yeah, so it's used as a tactic to discredit the victim, saying that to say that before this memang you always have sex with a lot of men, you usually go clubbing and things like that. So I'm sure the sex that you had with my client is consensual. Maybe now you just regret it or something. And I guess it's their job to kind of try to discredit the victim, but this is definitely something that Singapore is trying to improve on lah. From what I've heard, there are macam new rules in place to ensure that lawyers don't bring in the victim's past sexual history unless they get permission from the court. So these are some of the improvements in place. But at the same time, I think some people might have noticed there was this case, I think maybe last year, and Aware also commented on the case, where in the court punya judgment, even the court itself was asking questions like, the victim took 36 days to report. The victim was in a clinic and the victim didn't scream. There were other people around. The victim's story, the first story that she told, was inconsistent with her other stories. And I know the court definitely weighed a lot of factors to come to its decision. I'm not saying the court is not fair or anything, but these reasons, these factors, it does allude to victim blaming also, because what people don't realize is fight or flight is not the only response. Victims freeze and they can't do anything, and then there are a lot of reasons for why victims don't report the matter immediately. One of it being society will blame them and society won't believe them, and so this prevents people from reporting quickly. And when they report at the first time, they are probably feeling scared and nervous, so that's why sometimes there are inconsistencies in their story, between that first time and afterwards when they talk to their lawyers, talk to the police. And these are things that I think even the court, the judges, our lawyers can improve on. So on that level, we need to improve. On a societal level, we definitely need to improve also lah. I think you said macam some of the older women are not aware of their rights. It's because we believe in this whole macam we have to keep quiet, we have to suffer in silence, macam kita malu, aib and all these things. So all these things contribute to victim blaming and prevent people from reporting. And I think the most important thing that people need to know, out of this long speech I made about victim blaming, is that kadang-kadang, unfortunately lah, women are attacked just because they exist. Attackers don't need any excuse or any reasons to choose a victim, women are attacked just because we exist, and so people need to realize that and stop blaming women, stop blaming the victim.
So berbalik pada apa yang tadi Nur cakap, dan I have a story about a 51-year-old woman. So I'm not sure whether any of you ingat, I think 2 weeks ago this 51-year-old woman sent me a long email. She was like, Fiza, terima kasih for giving me this space. Bila I nampak your post, I nampak that you wanted to do this topic, I terpanggil untuk finally after all these years untuk ceritakan pada seorang. That's only to me. Only I know her story. She's 51 years old. Dan ia berlaku pada dia ketika dia berusia 18 tahun after her A-levels. So after her A-levels, what happened was dia tengah tunggu dekat McDonald's. Waktu tu in central area. So in the I think that was what, maybe 90s, 80s, I don't know. So this man came up to her, not bukan Singaporean, of another bangsa. Probably the man was attractive, had nice eyes, you know, because she was like, you know, giving out that description. This man coming up to a 18-year-old girl, lepas tu dia beritahu, oh, you have nice, beautiful eyes. That's like macam very little of, you know, grooming really. Macam like, okay, I baiting her with a compliment. And for an 18-year-old girl out of school, habis A-levels, you're like, oh, that's nice, kan? So the man talked to her and then found out that she likes arts. Dia suka painting. And the man said this, I have this beautiful painting I want to show you in my hotel room. Then we can talk about art. And remember tau, this macam bagi orang yang macam dengar sekarang like, oh, okay, that's a bit. But 18-year-old girl in the 90s or 80s, like exposed to social media, no stories of this. Thought like, oh, okay, maybe this man probably inside her head could be slightly interested, could be asking, you know, wanting to be friends with me, I don't know. So ikut dia pergi hotel, because the man started off menegur, dia cakap Assalamualaikum, dia jawab balik Waalaikumsalam. So she said, oh no, this man is a nice Muslim, kan, takkan apa-apakan I. So she was talking to the hotel room, she was like, so she had thoughts like, wait, is this right? And she said, okay, but cannot be lah. Yeah, like why would the man do anything bad to me? I'm a student, kan. So dia ikut sampai ke bilik hotel, and then also she's like, something is wrong. No, cannot be wrong. Cannot be wrong. Even at that point of time, because you, again, 18 years old, dalam bilik hotel tu, and then they start to freeze up. And then the man start to nak buka baju dia. So she's like, please don't. She's like, Fiza, I couldn't move. And that part is like, macam orang macam, you couldn't move, you couldn't fight. But she was so scared, and she was begging and crying. She said, don't touch me. I don't know, sekali lelaki tu masuk tandas, keluar balik, I think had a change of heart. She said, go now. So she ran. Dia terus lari, nangis sampai hotel, lobby hotel. She took a cab. She started crying in the cab on the way home. Sampai rumah, she didn't tell her parents because she was so scared. Soalan-soalan seperti, kenapa ikut lelaki masuk bilik hotel? Back on her. And then she didn't want to meet anyone else and tell anyone else sebab takut malukan mak bapak. Anak dara dia ikut lelaki masuk bilik hotel. So she carried a burden dengan diri dia sampai sekarang ni berusia 51 tahun. She said, Fiza, I have Alhamdulillah, I have a great career after that, and I went on with my life. I had a keluarga, I have a husband, I have children, but but until today, dia tak boleh lalu hotel tersebut. She will macam so many bad memories will start coming to her. I ceritakan ni, I tiba-tiba meremang balik because this burden untuk you pikul selama 30 tahun, it's just so heavy. She said, I want to let all of your young followers to let them know, speak up and speak out.
I think that's another thing we have to realise, you know, when masyarakat kita asyik salahkan mangsa, these things are internalised by the victim. And because most victims will start asking themselves questions like, what could I have done differently? What did I do wrong? Why was I targeted? Why was I chosen over another person? And there are elements to victim blaming there as well by the victim himself or herself lah. And that often leads to self-blame. And again, all these things will prevent them from reporting the matter. And we saw this in the Asatiza case also, because even though macam in the case of Asatiza, they are as close as it gets to the idea of a perfect victim because they tutup aurat and things like that. But people still found ways to blame the Asatiza. They were saying things like, oh, maybe the Ustazah should not have posted their photos, and a lot of other bad things, trying to blame them.
I was shocked.
Yes, and we saw some of the victims, they carried a lot of self-blame and they started questioning why me, why not someone else and things like that. And this is all a result of what the community has been saying, what the community has been shouting at them, that it's your fault. Yeah.
Yeah, so like victim blaming is one issue why people also don't want to come forward with their stories, and they pendamkan so long until finally a safe space for them pop up for them to share their stories. And I think this will really affect people's healing and recovery process. So I think us as a community, how we can do better is also then to provide more empathetic and responses with care and concern. Because we do want victims and survivors to come forward and share their story. We don't want them to pendamkan it forever. So 4 statements that the Sexual Assault Care Centre in Singapore have come up with on how you can support your loved ones and your family members and your friends who have come forward to you and share their story of trauma and of sexual violence. So the 4 main statements that you can tell them, the first one is of course it's not your fault, because all of this, they didn't ask for it. Whatever they were wearing, where they have been, where they went, it's all not their fault. And as what Noor was saying, that already the victims and survivors are already internalizing this idea, oh, what could I have done better? Oh, I shouldn't have done this. We should just tell them it's not your fault, because really at the end of the day, it's not their fault. They didn't ask for it. They tak minta for all of this to happen. So the first most important thing is to say that it's not your fault. Secondly, we should also say that this is your choice, what you want to do, how you want to move forward with this, because we also cannot paksa people to make a police report. As Noor has mentioned, the process is it can be very re-traumatizing, it can be very long and protracted, and survivors and victims may not want to put themselves through such a experience when fresh from this experience. So we shouldn't force them to do things. We should tell them it's your choice. It's your choice how you want to move forward with your experience. And then secondly, we should also say that this is your experience, and we shouldn't compare their experiences with someone else. We shouldn't minimize their experiences and say, oh, tapi it's not as bad as this other person, or actually dulu aku pun pernah tapi macam ni. We shouldn't compare their experiences with other people's experiences, because what they're experiencing now is traumatic. What we should do right now is to validate and to support them and to support their feelings and whatever they are feeling right now. We shouldn't do any comparison, and we shouldn't minimize or dismiss their experiences and say actually it's not that serious. Then finally, we should say that I am here to support you in any way that we can. So some people might decide that, okay, actually I don't want to do anything. I just want to take time to myself to recover and heal by myself. I really need to take time out from everything, from social media, whatever. We should respect that choice, and we should try to support them in whatever way that they can. So sometimes perhaps a few years later or a few weeks later, then they decide, okay, I want to go to the police and make a police report. So then we can show our support by either, okay, I can accompany you to the police station, atau okay, maybe the survivor says, I want to seek professional help, for example. Okay, then we can accompany them, make an appointment for them, help them research which counselling places are good, or maybe at the end of the day, they just really want a listening ear, someone to support them and all that. So it's very important that we also respect the choice that the survivor and the victim wants to make, because in this sort of experience of sexual violence and sexual trauma and sexual abuse, the choice of the survivor has been taken away from them. And for us to impose our own decision, it's also taking their choice away from them. So what we should do is really to listen to what the survivor wants, what they want to do, and validate their experience and their emotions at that point of time, and not macam impose and paksa them to do things that they don't want to do, because we have to give the choice back to them.
I think another way that we can also support survivors and also protect women in general is to start interrogating misogynist ideas in our community. So any ideas that degrade women, any ideas that dehumanize women, this is all the starting point. This is what leads to prejudice against women, and this is what influences our actions, how we behave, our attitude towards women now. And I see this so many times, and it happens everywhere. Like just now Noor said, in the media, for example, or in schools, you are taught ideas. You are taught to believe that women are less than men. And I think these ideas are very harmful. So and it even
maybe mungkin dapat Nur bagi kita sedikit example of these ideas. Macam sometimes these ideas are like so normalized.
Yeah.
Kita tak terfikir ini adalah sebenarnya contoh this thing is being propagated and instilled dalam otak kita yang okay, it's okay. Contohnya.
Yeah, like sometimes like it even exists even in like among religious spaces. Yeah, macam I was from a madrasah, right? And even the things that some of my religious teachers would say about women, like for example, this is very sensitive, and I'm so sorry that I have to see on this platform lah. But you know some of the things like perempuan kalau yang tak pakai tudung ni tak ada maruah, ataupun I had a friend. I was from the A-level stream, so I had a friend from the Al-Azhar stream. Then she found out that women in Al-Azhar study less than men. I don't know if this is a common practice or it was
That particular year.
yeah. So that was what my friend found out from her teachers, and then she shared that with me. And then I asked my teacher in front of like my class lah. I asked, is this true? Like betul ke ni? Like perempuan belajar lagi sikit daripada lelaki dekat Al-Azhar? And then she said yes. And then she said, I asked her why lah. Maybe there is an explanation, you know. But then she said, it's because men are supposed to learn more than us because they are better than us. You know, women don't need to learn so much as men. And these are the kind of ideas that really confirm or affirm that women are less than men. And because of these harmful ideas, men and even women in general don't see men and women as equals. Yeah, and when this happens, this is a process of dehumanization. You know, you will not harm someone, you will not sexually assault someone, you will not harass them if you don't see them as not human anymore. Yeah, and it is these harmful ideas that we need to interrogate, and not just in like secular spaces, but also in religious spaces also. What are the things that we have been teaching our generation? What are the things that we have been teaching our students, you know? And in front of impressionable young students, what are the ideas that they are carrying back, and then they will become
life.
Yeah, and then what if they become teachers in the future, right? Yeah, and we see this everywhere. Even a few years ago, there was the report dalam berita harian kan, ada seorang ustaz dia berikan macam a patriarchal interpretation of a Quranic verse yang kononnya suami boleh pukul isteri kalau dia tak taat. It's everywhere, you know, in religious spaces, non-religious spaces, and we need to start interrogating these ideas, even in like the way we interpret or teach religion. Yeah, and I'm not saying this to malukan institusi agama lah, untuk nak rosakkan institusi agama. No. When I remember these stories kan, bila I teringat apa yang Ustazah I cakap, I don't think, oh no, they are wrong, this is their fault. No, I know there is a whole culture around them that justifies this, that says and believes in all of these things. And what I'm saying is that this needs to stop. Yeah, and it's not solely on them. All of us need to start interrogating the things that we say, things that we believe in. Yeah, and this needs to change. We cannot see women as less than men. No.
Yeah. And this is exactly the meaning of we need to unlearn.
Yeah.
And relearn. Because I feel that sometimes people use that word so loosely that it dilutes the entire meaning of unlearn and relearn. And people take it like macam as okay, unlearn, relearn. But truly, that is such a heavy motto, you know, or like line for us to betul-betul hold true to it. To unlearn and relearn, it takes an entire generation. Not entire generation. It takes multi-generations untuk kita betul-betul unlearn and relearn the act of our daily acts or what we used to say. That actually was dehumanizing someone kan. Dan macam it's so instilled in us, and I feel macam I think I spoke to you, okay wait, what time is it right now? Because kadang-kadang kita berbual sampai 2-3 hari kan on this topic kan. So I think the other day I was just talking to you girls offline. Because kita dah instilled like the idea of like macam everything in a household or macam everything in a family, wanita yang bertanggungjawab. What goes right, it should be by the woman. Kan, if it goes wrong, mak. It's never like macam kalau anak dia nakal ke, anak dia buat jahat ke, you like ni bapak dia. Tak, it's like mana mak dia in a situation kan. Kalau anak tak pandai, is the mak kan. It's like macam it is good, like alhamdulillah, like the mom is very very much instrumental in shaping someone, and it is true that the mother is instrumental in shaping someone. But I think as we go by, we also have to have a shared responsibility.
Yeah.
in the family. And these are the small things that kind of like contribute to the idea of women cuma buat ni je, ini je tanggungjawab kau, kan, in the family. So orang akan cakap, what's the what is this got to do with misogyny? What has this got to do with locker room talk? But everything semua bersangkut paut. Everything links to another.
Yeah.
And mungkin cakap pasal misogyny, ada yang antara mereka yang berusia mungkin in the late 30s onwards, 40s and 50s and 60s yang tak, atau maybe in 20s. Misogyny is a very big word. What can we give instances, cases bagi, from the perspective of Fiza have worked with a couple of organisations before this. Hikmah, you yourself yang pernah di madrasah selama 12 tahun and now in university in your third year right now. And Noor, you yourself as a future lawyer insyaAllah, now waiting for your bar exams. How do you explain untuk the, in your most layman term idea of misogyny and contoh-contoh misogyny ni ataupun ketidakadilan terhadap wanita?
I think in the simplest sense, misogyny is hatred towards women. Dia kebencian yang tersirat terhadap perempuan.
Tersirat.
Tersirat.
Macam
yang kadang
you tak mengaku. You rasa tak,
betul.
no I don't.
Dan
I tak
pasal
rasa.
tersirat ni kadang kita tak sedar tau yang kita sebenarnya ada kebencian tu. Ya, kita tak sedar sampailah bila kita cakap sesuatu tentang perempuan ataupun kita buat sesuatu tentang perempuan. Macam contohnya tadi macam saya pernah dengar orang kata perempuan tak pakai tudung, tak ada maruah ni semua. Ini menunjukkan apa, kita ada satu kebencian terhadap perempuan. Seolah-olah perempuan ini cuma boleh dinilai melalui pakaian dia. Kita tak nampak perempuan ni sebagai manusia yang a full human being that deserves respect. Yeah, that is I think the basic understanding of misogyny lah. Yeah, and then you see it in actions also, macam sexual harassment. How does that happen? Because you don't see them as women, you don't respect them.
Yeah. So I think I agree with that, and I think another aspect to misogyny is that it views women as inferior, and it's based on certain macam prejudices, like preconceived notions. So macam kita ada buat anggapan, like assumptions about women that are not true, and we act upon those things. So for instance, macam if you look at it in the workplace setting, maybe there are a lot of misogynistic employers who will say things like, I don't want to promote this female executive because I think eventually she's going to have a child, she's going to have to take leave to go and take care of her child, and so she does not deserve this promotion. Or maybe they just feel that women are going to leave the workforce anyway, so they don't deserve equal pay. Or women are inherently like what Hikmah said just now, women are inherently weaker or not as smart, not as intelligent, not as good as their job, so again they get paid less. So these are just ways in which misogyny manifests itself in different systems. So it will really affect you in the workplace, at home, in many ways lah. And like you said, macam caregiving responsibilities also. There are men out there who will kononnya say, I am a feminist, I believe in equal rights. But I still think kalau bab jaga anak ni is mak punya kerja, because mak is more macam loving. I could never love my child or care for my child as much as my wife does, and they try to frame it as like a good thing, but actually it's not lah. It is also part of misogyny, like this idea that like women can stay home and take care of the kids better, but actually who does that really benefit lah? It benefits the men. Like women have to give up their careers to do this, and it's proven by research that there is no such thing that a child responds better to a father's or a mother's macam love and things like that. It's up to the father whether or not he wants to take on that role, how earnest he is in wanting to care and love for the child. And yeah, these are just like little things we see in our everyday lives. Yeah.
And thank you, girls. I'm taking a very short break from this. We're going to come back with what Fiza feels about misogyny and how can best. Sebab Fiza have worked, as I said, with a couple of organisations, and I want to. There's a couple of very good comments over here, but some of it says something like, "Hi Fiza, kata Emilia, I love." So reading from these are from YouTube punya comments. I love how brave and smart these ladies are. And thank you, Fiza, for hosting this conversation. Alhamdulillah that there are women. I mean, when I start, Fiza O and Go Friends, I just need to, I tell myself, if you can help one woman to come out of a shell, Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
And if you can help more, Masya Allah, right? That one woman can help another woman. And this is how kebaikan works. One of us who got out, get strong, help another one out. Because if we have a very strong positive community, Masya Allah, can you imagine how much forward you can help, how much kemajuan in so many aspects that we can get for the community. Hi Fiza, I've never been to a event and panel discussion here that has this energy. Wow, that's a big compliment. Thank you. And thank you Noor right over there. There's power and truth in the word said. Terima kasih. I feel like I agree with the speaker. Talk about the situation in the industry. Some employers put extra pressure in for the pregnant ladies, so they will resign before they take maternity paid leave. Wow, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
I didn't know this. I mean, Noor, you are, a soon-to-be lawyer, insyaAllah. And I'm sure when you uncover cases, you have seen more than what I have probably read before in my life. Kan? So we're going to be talking more about this. Take a short break. We'll be reading your comments after this. Jadi teruskan dengan komen-komen awak. Hantarkan komen-komen di YouTube comment section. The super chat section is very, very active right now. Juga di Facebook. I'll be back on Facebook lepas ni. Dan kalau you rasa segan, I'll be checking the WhatsApp. So this is the WhatsApp number. The WhatsApp number. No, they subscribe. But okay, anyway, I'm going to check my WhatsApp text later on. Then I'll be back after this. Of course, terima kasih for watching me live on Fiza O and Go Friends. Syed, I'm not able to catch his screen, Syed. Maybe Syed can come back because I'm not able to scroll up. Syed's going to scold me. Fiza, kau scroll up sini. Okay, got it, Syed. Got it.
Fiza O and Girlfriends berehat seketika dan akan kembali sebentar nanti. Untuk memberi pendapat pandangan anda, kirimkan voice note ataupun WhatsApp anda ke +65 8389 0280 +65 8389 02.
Tengok dia, penampilan kau sepenuhnya. Sesetiap langkah bertenaga, semua tenganga melihatnya. Usah kau rasa bimbang, mereka akan membuat kau bahagia. Let's get ready now untuk terima. Fiza O and Girlfriends, Fiza O and Girlfriends, Fiza O and Girlfriends, Girlfriends. Fiza O and Girlfriends, Fiza O and Girlfriends, Fiza O and Girlfriends, Girlfriends. Girlfriends, girlfriends, sekarang tak macam dulu. Biar semua orang tahu cerita benar berlaku. Usah kau rasa bimbang, mereka akan membuat kau bahagia. Let's get ready now untuk terima. Fiza O and Girlfriends, Fiza O and Girlfriends, Fiza O and Girlfriends, Girlfriends. Fiza O and Girlfriends, Fiza O and Girlfriends, Fiza O and Girlfriends, Girlfriends.
Fiza O and Girlfriends berehat seketika dan akan kembali sebentar nanti.
Okay, now we're back. Terima kasih untuk semua yang watching us live. So kita dah dengar dari apakah pengertian misogyny dalam keadaan yang paling mudah untuk difahami. So terima kasih to everyone. Ada kata Assalamualaikum to Fiza and all girlfriends. Terima kasih. Ada yang katakan hi Fiza. Kalau that's not nice untuk lakukan pada wanita-wanita yang hamil. Untuk wanita-wanita yang hamil yang you're made to feel that you're taking advantage of the situation. Padahal it's really your right, kan? I mean, you have to you have to give birth and you have to recuperate. Kalau orang patah kaki, they take a week of orang go for like maybe some canal surgery 2 weeks MC, kan? You're giving birth, give her a break. It's a real life changing moment. Then if your employees cannot ada katakan if your employees are being unfair, you can go to head to MOM to kind of laporkan. But I think I'm just a regular woman. You were like alamak, all the channels. So most women is like you know what, tak apa. Just leave it, just let it be. So what do you say no to this?
I think there is some truth to the fact that sometimes our systems are not very accessible. It may be difficult, but there is this thing called TAFEP, like Tripartite Alliance for Unfair Employment Practices. I think that's what it means. So you can go to TAFEP, you can go to MOM, and it is difficult, but I think it is important that you do so to stand up for yourself, especially when it comes to like employment matters. This is your livelihood.
TAFEP, TAFEP, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean we're sharing so that you guys can help yourself. Okay, yang watching us live, macam you think like there's no way out. There is a way out.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a way out because I mean there are systems put in place to help.
Yeah.
Yeah. So continue to go to TAFEP,
Yeah,
TAFEP, and
you can
then
go to TAFEP. It's under MOM, and you can seek help from them. Like they deal specifically with cases of like unfair employment practices. So if you approach them, they will respond to your complaints. And I think most importantly, for women going through this, you have to keep certain evidence, because I know that there are some employers who purposely try to macam lay you off, or like try to not lay off. They'll purposely try to make you resign. So it's not seen as like, oh, I'm firing you right before your maternity leave. You are the one yang nak resign. Yeah, so macam they'll make certain macam changes in the macam departments, shift people around and be like, oh, actually your role is not macam needed anymore, something like that. There are companies who do that. So I think it's important for you to document everything, so that when you do make your complaint, you have a stronger case. Even in the cases where the employer tries to do these kind of funny things, if there is a pattern that you can establish, it definitely helps your case. So I think that's my only tip, to make sure you keep all the evidence that you may need when you want to make that complaint.
terima kasih. That's
I want to
lawyer
add-
advice. Okay.
I want to add that apart from TAFEP, there is also the WHDA, or the Workplace Harassment and Discriminatory Advisory, that also provides support for any woman facing workplace harassment or workplace discrimination. I know last year they saw an increase in cases regarding maternity discrimination. So this is something that is definitely a growing concern.
WHDA.
Yes, WHDA is being run by AWARE, the Association of Women for Action and Research. So last year, I understand that they also saw a spike in maternity-related cases, and they also have some information on their website on how to address maternity-related discrimination issues.
Wow, okay. So there are places untuk kita dapatkan bantuan beza-beza. Because sometimes I think I shared about this a few days ago. So a girl in HR with a MNC was sharing with me that it's important for you to go up to your HR, but we also know different companies got different HR systems.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't work for you, you can go to TAFEP or go to WHDA to get help. So thank you very much. So Noor have already said about the unfairness of misogyny, that what could lead to, apakah yang dia boleh apakah hal-hal lain yang boleh disebabkan oleh misogyny. Bagi Fiza, from your experience, having spoken to banyak ataupun ramai perempuan tentang hal sebegini, macam manakah you boleh describe misogyny in your own perspective to others yang kurang faham tentang istilah ni?
I think both of them already covered it very well. Tapi I also agree with Hikmah that at the end of the day, it's suatu kebencian yang tersirat towards women, and this can play out in many different ways. In your behavior, in your speech and all that, this is one way that you can see the hatred towards women. It may not be so explicit saying I hate women, but then when you objectify women, you just look at them as sexual objects atau things that you can use for your own benefit, and once dah done, you just buang and move on to the next one. These are all behaviors and attitudes that are misogynistic as well. So actually, one of our recommendations in our joint statement that the 5 groups put out is for more comprehensive sexuality education, and we think that this is important because right now the sexuality education, not just in MOE public schools but also in madrasah, is entirely inadequate. I know I was speaking to Hikmah about your experience with sex ed in madrasah.
Yeah, I think when I was in madrasah, because there are 6 full-time madrasahs in Singapore and not all of us have the same experiences, so I am just speaking based on my own experience.
Your own experience,
yeah. And even students from my own school also have different experiences apparently from different like batches. Yeah, so for me personally, there wasn't any formal sex education that I was given. It was probably at the initiative of like individual teachers if they wanted to teach us in class. But even then, the definition of sex education is like, awak tahu mandi hadas.
Okay.
Bila dah balik, kalau awak datang hit, kena mandi hadas, things like that. There wasn't anything about consent, or how to have healthy relationships, how to stand up for yourself, how to have healthy boundaries in whatever relationships, right? So that kind of comprehensive sex education was not provided, and I think both in like secular and madrasas, yeah.
I can't remember for mine actually. I can't remember if I had it. Do you have it, Fiza? Because we were from secular schools.
Yeah, I did, but I also didn't find it particularly helpful or particularly realistic for my situation. At that
Of course,
point
our
in
age
time.
gap is quite big, you know. So I can remember, but the only thing I probably was educated in secondary school was when we started on bio. Bio lessons kan. Okay, so body parts. So it's like, you know, bio body parts. And you know, when it was in that almost Y2K era, it was like not really, I mean, internet was starting in 1995, you know, so it was very much not yet quite there. But for you dah ada sex ed talks in schools.
Yeah. It mainly focused on boy-girl relationships, and of course the main focus is still on abstinence, which is also the main focus right now. But the comprehensive sex ed that we are recommending for is sex ed that covers things like consent, power dynamics, gender inequality, gender-based violence. These are all issues that have to be discussed in sex ed because comprehensive sex ed also discuss things like gender roles and what our assumptions and what are our ideas and stereotypes of gender roles. Because I understand in some of your previous episodes, Fiza, that a male survivor of sexual violence came forward to share their story, and that they as a male person felt very confused and and didn't want to share their story because in our society right now we have this idea that men are protectors and maintainers. So therefore, kalau someone who should be gaga and who should be strong, why are they then
also
the victims
attacked
right now? Yes. So then that's why this person unfortunately felt so didn't feel safe coming out. So that's why comprehensive sex ed is important, because then we interrogate our ideas and our stereotypes of what gender roles are and what our assumptions are and
who are oppressors.
Yes.
Yeah. Siapakah yang like it could come in all kind of shapes and forms, these oppressors. How do we identify these oppressors and call them out kan? I think these are important untuk kita ketahui, because I have shared a lot of stories in my previous episodes. If you haven't watched yet, you can please go back and click and subscribe. But truly cerita ni adalah as I said, some of the stories come from a place of macam dorang tak nak cakap pasal siapa until now, because the oppressors or the perpetrators came from family members that dorang rasa takut nak cakap. Like if I say it's my word against a stronger party, like macam like, oh dia pakcik,
more senior,
and mungkin more well versed in hal-hal agama. So who am I to say that he did it and he's very trusted in the family kan? Jadi macam-macam cerita yang comes out after 20 years, lepas 10 tahun, then they shared with me. And you're right, Fiza, when you said that even the word of consent. Okay, kita tengok, okay, consent adalah keizinan. Mungkin dapat you guys break down the idea of keizinan yang kita belum, it's not much talked about. So today we were talking about consent, we have not gotten there yet. Mungkin dapat Fiza, share with me about the idea of consent, and Hikmah and Noor.
So consent, I think a useful way to understand consent is through this acronym called FRIES, F-R-I-E-S, like what we selalu makan. So FRIES, F, the first one meaning freely given, meaning consent have to be given freely. It shouldn't be dipaksa atau under manipulation or under pressure from someone else. It should be if you're asleep atau if you're unconscious, you cannot freely give consent. Legally, under the law also, if you are intoxicated atau mabuk atau under the influence of drugs or substances, also you cannot give consent. So any form of so if you are afraid atau intimidated, you also cannot give consent because it is not freely given. So secondly, for R, it's reversible. So if you give consent, you can take it back at any point of time. So like let's say if you are like very simple example, like say you agree to pegang tangan dengan seorang, then halfway through you're like, okay, actually I'm very uncomfortable, you can withdraw that consent. Next is I, which is informed. So you need to know the full story. You need to know the risks and consequences before you give your consent. E, meaning enthusiastic. So it should be something that you want to do and not something that you are expected to do. So things like silence. Silence is not consent because consent has to be enthusiastic. And the final one meaning specific. So specific to a certain activity at a certain point of time. What it means is that if I consent to, let's say, pegang tangan, for example, I only consent to that activity. I didn't consent to kissing, for example. If I consent to pegang tangan right now, it doesn't mean I consent to pegang tangan in the future or forever. So consent should always be, we should always seek for consent for every activity and at every point of time. And also another factor that is important to consider when talking about consent is body language. So sometimes we assume the person is laughing, for example. But then some people laugh when they are nervous atau when they're stressed. We cannot just assume, pasal diorang laughing, then maybe they are happy, so it means yes, which is consent. No, we shouldn't assume this sort of thing about other people's behavior, other people's body language, especially if it's a new relationship when we don't really know the other person, we don't really know our partner so well. And even in all forms of relationship, this also applies. So body language shouldn't be used as an indicator of consent. It can be useful as an indicator of when a person says no atau of that person being uncomfortable. So sometimes they might say yes, tapi you can see their body language is actually a no atau it's a maybe. So body language shouldn't be an indicator of consent, tapi it can be useful to tell when someone is saying no. And then the final important consideration for consent is power dynamics. So what you're saying, like family, when it involves family and children and all that. So power dynamics is when there is a relationship in which one party has more power than the other. For example, in a lecturer and student, teacher and student, boss and employee, manager and employee, older parent, older relative and a child, for example. This also affects consent. When there is unequal power dynamics, then consent cannot be freely given. So then this is also another issue that we must take into consideration when talking about consent and when understanding situations of sexual assault and sexual harassment and all that.
Wow. Fiza, I feel like I just got a short course from you. Truly. Just when I thought, okay, I understand consent, no, I didn't. I did not before this. Betul, I thought like I understand what's consent, but this explanation is what consent is all about. The idea of power. Oh my goodness, the idea untuk dapat consent actually is very hard because you got to weigh out all of these like different situations dan specific tau. Macam power dynamics is just dia macam in so many cases of let's say assaults, this power dynamics come into play in most of this assault. Ada yang antara cerita yang I terima adalah tentang this lady also had this problem with her boss, and the boss was from a place of power, from a he knows his stuff, he knows how to like if kau cakap, I know the actions I can take so that I can silence you. That's power dynamics already. Kan? As you say, age as well, size as well, position in the family as well. So Fiza, thank you for giving me that short crash course on consent. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah.
But I also want to add that it's important that we also have comprehensive sex ed and a lot of discussion on consent, because macam learning a new language, for example, it takes time for us to master that new language, and also it takes consistent practice for us to really truly understand and be comfortable with the values of consent and respect. It cannot just be a one-off 1 hour sex ed lesson atau just one full day session on consent, because there's so many things we need to understand. There's so many contexts and nuances that we need to be familiar with, that sex ed has to be comprehensive, it has to be sustained, and it has to start from young, and at least throughout the person's formal education system. And the explanation I give just now, it might seem that there's a lot of factors to play in that we have to take into consideration with consent, but it's also important that we practice consent in our everyday lives and in our everyday relationships, our everyday conversations, so that we are always familiar with asking for consent and seeking consent, and we don't feel awkward when we are put in sexual situations where we have to then ask for consent. So for example, everyday situations where we can ask for consent is macam
amalkan. Macam umpamanya Hikmah, can I borrow your handphone today? today? Atau can I borrow your hijab today? This colour. Hari ni tau. And then I make it mine for the next 20 years. Besok aku datang rasa aku nak pakai, aku pakai. Tak minta permission at all. So you ask doesn't mean you borrow for a lifetime.
And even I think it also extends to like what Fiza said, general relationships. We need to start thinking about how we can orient ourselves towards a consent culture whereby we respect people and respect their bodies, respect their boundaries. So for example, small children who meet their more senior family members kan. Sometimes some parents akan paksa salam, but they don't feel comfortable at that point of time, you know. You need to teach them to respect their own bodies, listen to their own bodies. If they don't feel comfortable, okay, that's fine. Maybe teach them another way of greeting, right? Sekarang kan tengah COVID ada salam macam gini kan. You know, there are different ways for them to express themselves in a way that they feel comfortable. Because it's very funny for me if you want to teach consent to adults and then you know this is if you are in a relationship you need to ask for consent. It's very funny to me that if they are taught only to seek for consent in relationships when their entire aspects of like their lives other than that romantic relationship they are not taught about consent, you know, and their boundaries are not respected. So I think it's a whole culture of like how you practice like at home or in schools, you know, how you teach students, how you teach your children to respect their own bodies, listen to themselves, and then also to ask for permission from other people or for other people to respect their own decisions.
Saya back on Facebook, some of the comments I've gotten on Facebook. Terima kasih teruskan liking and sharing our live today. Terima kasih. Seorang one of the girls nama dia B Norman saying that lelaki pun perlu bersuara dengan lantang dan juga tegas untuk berikan kesedaran kepada kaum mereka sendiri apa yang tak boleh, apa yang tak patut, dan mangsa tak bersalah walau apa pun alasan sebab kejahatan tetap kejahatan and it's a choice that they make to do towards the victim.
Can I agree entirely with what Kak B says, especially because men a lot of these cases of sexual assault and sexual harassment, it cannot just be considered a woman's issue. Pasal a lot of the overwhelmingly the pelaku-pelakunya adalah orang lelaki. So men also have to bersuara and be part of the conversation. They cannot just be passive bystanders, especially because they are the ones who have access to all this macam polling, to all these locker room talks, to all these secret Telegram chat groups and all that. They have access to all of that, so they need to call out their brothers and their bros and all that. And also right now in our community, men are in positions of leadership and positions of authority. They have the ability to make change, to enact policies that can protect victims of sexual harassment and prevent such things from happening again. We cannot allow these things to continue happening and then another big issue happens and then we are again very upset and uproar and like, why is all this happening? No, we can create change now, and change needs to happen right now. It needs to happen as soon as possible.
In small ripples,
because we cannot let women continue bearing the consequences because of this lack of political will to change.
And sadly, I noticed that because of like we value men's opinions more sometimes, maybe. That's why it's very important for orang lelaki untuk
we're laughing
step
because
up. Yes. We all know. Bila kita bersuara, orang akan kata, oh ni melebih lah, extra,
emotional,
selalu, emotional, right?
Emotional women.
But then that's why it's very important. We need a lot of men allies to come forward and then to also amplify what we are saying. Like for example, in the recent the Asasi poll case also, the only reason why it went public was because Ustaz Zaidin, Ustaz Irwan Hadi made it viral, right? They made it public. If not, no one would care.
From a male perspective,
right?
Kan?
Yes.
From a male perspective. And I feel, and Alhamdulillah, I think we're also very grateful for Madam President for speaking up for us. And that's why, when I tweeted, I said, thank you for being our biggest ally, for speaking up. Because then it triggers so many other changes, also many other statements from male allies. And so I also have certain other, friends or like acquaintances who also feel passionately about this. Jadi ada seorang kawan I ni, so she's not really having a platform to say about this, but she has been quite active, speaking out in comment sections, because she was speaking out macam against male who were blaming the victims lah. So there was another male yang actually like privately DM her DM her and say, I saw this male misogynist yang cakap, yang victim blaming. Can you please tell him to say this? Can you please say this to him? So she saw this as a male ally lah. This guy DMing her. But because I saw all this, I feel like, so why didn't he say this to him?
Yeah.
Is this a bro code thing that you're using a female to say that you are wrong? So we will need more males to break this bro code thing.
Yeah. Like, do you really want a bro who is like that anyway? Like, it's a relationship, I think, that's worth breaking if the person that you're friends with is a person who perpetuates this kind of ideas, who is okay with violence towards women. I think that's another thing that guys have to realize. Do you really want to be friends with someone like that? Will you knowing how your friend is in future, will you feel safe leaving your daughter with that man, for instance? Yeah, and it's always, it's actually quite negative. Actually, this idea of you have to think of your mother, your wife, your sister before you can empathize with women. That whole concept itself is wrong. But unfortunately, that's usually the instance where men will take a step back and think, what about my mother and sister? But again, I think we have to emphasize that women are their own person. You shouldn't have to think about your sister, mother and all that to see women as humans, to see other women deserving of safety and respect. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. I mean, it's not a good example for us to give, but it will start. I mean, it's okay for now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we get to a different level. Right now, it's like right now we're at the level of 1 + 1 is 2.
Yeah.
Basic. Okay. Okay. Let's get the addition part right before we get to multiplication. Inshallah. We have some females are coming in and being very thankful for this conversation. Terima kasih semua. Those on my YouTube live chat. Hi Fiza. So we have Sarah coming in. Sarah Bagari coming in saying that lots of love to all of you here. Thank you Kak Fiza for facilitating this much needed conversation. Yes, truly, and I did say to you girls that this platform, I wanna reach out to as many as possible for us to collaborate and speak out to more, and then collaborate more and speak out to more, to let women know, because dia macam apa tak? Dia macam you have to be consistent in telling women that no, whatever you're feeling, it's not over the top. It is much validated.
Yeah.
Yeah. The idea of consent aja. We thought consent means yes and that's it. You cannot take back. But no, you can take back that consent. Whenever you feel okay, this is macam dia dah too much ni dah. No. Kan? Because previously we thought once you say yes means it's yes. Then you feel guilty taking back that consent because ada idea of buruk siku. Kan? So kata Farisha Isha, one of the celebrities here, such a great conversation. Thank you Kak Fiza for doing this. So much is being covered in a very clear and succinct manner. How lucky we are to have these women leading such nuanced discussions. And truly, thank you. I feel like there's so much, but we're going to leave it right now because we're going to come back again. We're going to come back again. Let us know, girls, what you want us to discuss in our next future topics, inshallah. And alhamdulillah, these girls are doing their term breaks. So next term break. Next term break, we're going to come back. So thank you so much, Hikmah. Thank you so much, Filza. Thank you so much, Noor. Ada yang katakan, why is Noor off screen? Again, consent. Consent, okay? So before we leave, mungkin dapat Noor say your last few words, and also of course, so Noor from Lepak Conversations, follow these girls on their different platforms. Noor from Lepak Conversations, we have of course Filza from Beyond the Hijab, and we have Hikmah from NFGC. So Noor, what do you want to say before our next Lepak Conversation?
I think from me, just the last point, because we touched a bit on violence and sexual abuse within intimate relationships, between relatives and things like that. I think it's important for people to know that right now there are stricter penalties for perpetrators who are in close relationships with you. So if you feel like you are in a space to report, you should do it. There are things like domestic exclusion orders. So meaning if the person lives in the same house as you, you can get this order to ensure that that perpetrator cannot enter your house. If that's what you're worried about, they're like, oh, what if I report and then this person lives in the same house as me, he's going to beat me up after I report. There is that order that exists that can ensure that they cannot come into your house. Yeah, I think that's just a last point from me. Yeah.
Terima kasih Nur. I didn't know of that. Okay, sebab kadang-kadang kita takut kan, like at the end of the day you going to live in the same household. Kan nanti daripada you kena pukul at this level, you kena pukul more. Kan, the fear is real tau. So thank you Nur. Maybe that's another topic that we can have like solely on that. How about Fiza from Beyond the Hijab?
So thank you again to Kak Fiza for inviting us to your show and allowing us to speak on this and using your platform always to talk about issues like this. We are really very thankful and grateful. I also want to add that just going back to this particular Asatiza case, that we really as a community need to be more empathetic and show more care and concern to survivors instead of victim blaming them. It's because of our victim blaming and because of this judgment that we pass on survivors, that's why they don't want to come forward, and we need to create safe spaces when our whole community should be safe spaces. So again, I repeat again, what you should say to someone who comes to you as a survivor, that it's not your fault, it's your choice how you want to move forward with this, it's your experience, and I will support you whatever choice you make. I will respect whatever choice you make.
Inshallah. And how about you, Hikmah from FGC?
I think on the same point about making our community safer, when we see cases like sexual assault, sexual harassment, instead of thinking that it's just one individual who is at fault, we need to start interrogating what are the harmful ideas that we have about women, that the small things that we say, it's not something minor, it's something that contributes to the dehumanization of women, and in the end that perpetuates and allows these kinds of violence against women. So I think we should all take a step back and also start reflecting on the ideas that we believe about women, and then how is our attitude and behaviour, what are the things that we say about women in our own private and public spaces.
Jadi bukan setakat untuk lelaki saja, ini untuk kita semua,
perempuan
termasuk
pun
kita
boleh
sekali,
ada.
kan? Kadang-kadang apa yang kita cakap ni dengan tak sengaja is perpetuating a dehumanizing of a woman dengan tak sengaja. Like you were saying, Hikmah, you in your own course atau your own class, an ustazah, a female saying that yang tak bijak tu tak bermaruah, and you letting instilling that, although in a classroom of 10 perhaps ataupun 15, but 15 ni akan cakap pada lagi 15 yang lain. Kan? And then it's like macam actually casual talk is also very very potent. Kan, dia macam instilling things are casual, it makes you believe it more, lagi percaya, lagi benam tau. It makes it more okay. Kan? And not like macam paksa ke apa. It's like, oh okay, you're right. Macam contoh it's like fitnah, like macam, oh, I don't know whether it's true, but putting it out here, I think that she went out with that guy. You dah tak terfikir, did she go out with that guy? Tak ada bentuk, tak ada bukti ke apa. You start thinking about nonsense, kan? So we have someone watching us from Malaysia. Terima kasih. Ada katakan, wow, I wish I knew about this channel earlier. A really good discussion. Kata Adiba Said, I'm from Malaysia. Hello, hi, girlfriends from Malaysia. Let's unite. We are here. In fact, kita ada kawan-kawan lain yang juga from different countries. I mean, this is a global issue, and again, kita nak cakap bahawa this is not just our community. No, it is very much a global issue. But let's start from our community first. But if you want to join us and in having it as a global topic, we have many episodes for us to talk about this. Okay, so thank you so much. We've talked Fiza, Hikmah dah, Nur pun dah. So thank you. Subscribe to this channel. This is the place untuk kita dapat berbincang tentang more on women issues. Consent is another topic that we can have just one whole day on consent. Dan tadi kita pasal aib is another possible topic that we will talk about. And I think tadi before we end off, Nur was saying just now
about abuse within close relationships.
Abuse dalam keluarga, penderaan dalam keluarga. Penderaan itself macam-macam spektrum penderaan. Ada yang macam dia tak pukul kau apa? So itu kependeraan, dia tak pukul kau.
Emotional, psychological.
Kan? So you cannot quantify that sebab dia tak pukul, dia belum pukul lagi. Ataupun kalau pukul, ada yang macam siapa cakap tadi pasal ada asatizah yang menggunakan, was it you, Hikmah? Like a few years ago, you saying that ada yang mengatakan bahawa it's okay to do it kan?
Yes, ada.
okay.
It was published in a local Malay newspaper.
Yeah. So these are the things that we will bring up, insyaAllah. So thank you girls for your support, and thank you for the males for your support, for watching us live today. Our intent is to be the safe space untuk kita berbincang, and gonna see you next week. Okay, next Monday I have a guest. I have Saskia Dahuri, seorang pelakon very famous. She's got a very well followed shop kat Singapore, Kelantan. Was it Kelantan, Syed? Kelantan. Next Monday 11 a.m. So see you. Bye.
Bye.
Tengok dia, penampilan kau sepenuhnya. Setiap langkah bertenaga, semua tenganga melihatnya. Usah kau rasa bimbang.